Morning.
Morning.
I'm reminded of a couple things. One, Michael, I didn't get your email for the picture. Okay. Two, speaking of Dutch, I wore my Nijrode tie today because I was the first honorary member of the Nijrode Order to something or other. I can't remember the name. No disrespect to Nijrode, which is considered the Harvard of the Benelux countries. And I believe Nellie, who?
Smit-Cruz.
Nellie Smit-Cruz, give it to me. And at that time she was the president of Nijrode. And then she went on to, she was a minister of something. And now she is with the...
Brussels.
She's in Brussels with the...
Headquarters.
Yeah. She was a nice lady. And but when I first taught my first class in Nijrode, they all showed up in three-piece suits. Even some of the women. Now, I don't know whether they borrowed them, stole them, or whatever. And they all sat there, and I'm not easily taken back for not being able to say anything, but I look around the big amphitheater and I see all these people with shiny faces. And most of them were good-looking and blonde. But similar when I went to Reykjavik University, they're good-looking and blonde up there too in Iceland. But I had a great time in the Netherlands, and when I was picking my clothes out today, I decided to wear it this time. But it also made me think, speaking of universities, when I was a graduate assistant to the head of the School of Business, the associate head of the School of Business was a guy named Howard Shenson. Now, most of you are too young to remember who Howard Shenson is, but he was the father of modern management consulting. He went out and taught people how to be a management consultant, and he made a ton of money of it. From the 70s into the 80s, and he died in 91, a very young man. He was a year older than I was. And I took a class from him, and I taught one of his classes as a graduate assistant. And I said, Howard, and he and I, because he was only a year older than I am, he and I used to go out and have a beer and talk, etc. And I said, if you really believe in this shit, you ought to leave fucking school. And of course, he was looking for security. He was he had doubts. It sounded he could have been Doris's father. Okay? But I beated him every fucking day for a year. He left the university. He went out. He staggered around like that picture we have of the guy marching through the desert for a year or two. Then it finally gelled, and he started selling it, and he became filthy rich. And Howard Shenson is the father of modern management consulting. And he's got disciples all over the world. And a few of them have contacted me when I told that first story. I think I said it in a newsletter some time ago. But I've always been in a hurry. As a graduate student and a graduate assistant teaching his class, he really seemed gifted to me. He was a really smart guy. And why waste your time pissing around? Now, his boss, who was the dean of the School of Business, was a guy named David Raby. We used to call him Rabbit Raby. Rabbit like you get rabies from getting bit by a dog. He was a former number 2 guy at United States Steel, if I remember correctly. And he was the head guy. And I used to teach his classes as well from time to time. And he kind of dressed like this. I think it's probably where I got the idea. And and he said that he thought all college professors should go out and make it in the real world first, and then come back to share the knowledge. And he says, unfortunately, Dan, I am on a very short list of college professors to believe that. He had a PhD from Stanford, and he said that because nobody can make it in the real world, because this was in the late 60s, early 70s, he said that those who can't do teach, cannot do teach. And 40-some years later, I agree with that. But Rabbit Raby, he was a good guy, and he said the same thing because at the time they were trying to I was working on my master's degree, and at the time they said, you can get a PhD and you can come back here and teach. And Ray would say to me, are you fucking crazy? I mean, you're going to make a shit ton of money. You go out there, you know. He said, you're never going to make it at United States Steel. And he says, you're never going to make it at General Motors. But you're going to make it. So when I was getting dressed this morning, I was thinking of Nairoda and all the kids. And it was an experience, and I enjoyed it. In fact, I enjoyed teaching in Europe, in Iceland. Iceland's not Europe, is it? What is it? Whatever they call it up there. A lot more than I ever enjoyed teaching in the United States. Okay, last night you went out to dinner, and arguably, I don't like the restaurant because I don't like the owner. But arguably the best restaurant in Scotland and one of the best restaurants in Britain. How was the food?
Very nice.
Yeah. Was there anybody in the restaurant other than you?
A few.
A few? And did the short little fat lady take your order? Yeah. She looks like a bowling pin. Did you meet her husband or her chef or her son, the famous chef? No, they stayed in the back. Was she drinking? No, you couldn't tell. I mean, she's drinking out there. Anyway, but we've been in there when we're the only customers. And I still remember when we tried to use our Black American Express card there many years ago, and they looked at it like, what is this? You know, they never saw one. You know, and it didn't work there for whatever reason. But the food is good. Sally is correct. The food is very, very good. Now, tonight, we got a lot of stuff still to cover, and we're going to do some more role playing. And tonight, then we have graduation dinner, graduation pictures, same picture system, Megan, as we've had in the past. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And then some of you, now all of you will be leaving tomorrow, some early, and we'll have time to talk. And we'll have time to talk tonight when we're having champagne and canapes. I wanted to make a couple of points, and not about the financial follies, because if I just give this to YouTube and we talk about, without the background of what you had for the last few days, it won't be as impactful. But the bottom line is I ended up yesterday, almost every single thing that you've ever learned about raising money, doing deals, finding accountants, lawyers, etc. is bullshit. Accountants and lawyers will do deals on a success fee basis. Don't call it a contingency basis, dipshits. Success fee. Meaning that they'll get, if not all their money, a majority of their money when the deal is completed. Some accountants and lawyers will roll the fees. Okay, Andres' first deal fucking goes in the toilet. His second deal, his 10th deal goes in the toilet. Now, the 10th is a little bit of an exaggeration, but the 11th deal is a big success, and so you pay the fees for the prior deals. I had, as I mentioned, one of my stars, it took us 7 years to do a deal. And he paid all the fees out of the deal that we finally did in the 7th year. Now, I don't think you get anybody to do that now. In fact, I'm positive you'll never get anybody to do that now. But one of the biggest follies and biggest myths is it's hard to get the money. And we've got a couple examples here sitting at the two ends of the table that have done it, dating back to the late 90s and through the last 24 months. So the economic cycle has changed since the late 90s, 99, 2000 to be exact, to 2010, 11, 12, 13. I mean, it's like, they would say here, it's like, was it chalk and cheese? Is that how you say it, Megan? Chalk and cheese. In other words, it's absolutely different. But it still works. You can still find people and you can still find money. So one of the greatest myths is it's hard to find money. But it's hard to find the money if you don't ask for it. And in the infamous words of one of my 20-year partners and mentees, Bruce Whipple, if you don't ask, you don't get. And getting money is a numbers game. You have to ask a lot of people. And even though I don't have a kissing frog tie on today, because to remind me that you got to kiss a lot of frogs to find a prince or princess, it's a numbers game. And the better practiced you are, the more successful you will be. Another gigantic myth is that it takes a long time. The QLA methodology and the 7 steps to success, or super success, are all based on doing it in 3 to 7 years. And 3 is if you do everything perfectly right and the cosmos are juxtaposed perfect. Well, that doesn't happen very often, okay? So, but you build up in 3 to 7 years what it normally takes a generation or 2 to do. And just as Michael Milken, when he was interviewed at 43 years old, said, "How are you so damn smart?" And he says, "Really, I'm 86." And he did the math. He said, "I work every day except Yom Kippur or Rosh Hashanah, whichever is the highest holy day for the Jewish religion. I work 20 hours a day, because you only needed to sleep 2 hours. And if you do the math, I'm 86, I'm not 43. Now, I'm not suggesting, because I needed more than 2 hours sleep myself, and I'm not suggesting that you work 20 hours a day, but I am suggesting you work every day. So when he was 86, I was only about 72 or 73 when I was in my early 40s, because I didn't work as many hours as he did. But another myth, not a myth, but a reality is, before I do business with anybody, I make them go through a Doofus test. Doofus test, as I've told you guys, is I want you to have to fight traffic both ways. I want you to have to come on Valentine's Day, Christmas, New Year's, etc. Because that's when we're still in the romance phase. And if you can't do that, and you can't devote and be focused enough to do it then when the shit hits the fan and our deal's going sideways, or God forbid it's going down the toilet, and it's like, when you flush a toilet, tidy bowl, the water goes like this, and we're all spinning around like this, looking up for God or somebody to save us. If you can't do it just because they've got to come to work, meet me at 5:30 on a Friday afternoon, then you're just going to fucking drown. And most people, when they first come to this seminar, the first morning, would drown. Except for the ones that have been to those seminars, like Michael and Robert. Because they don't know. So there's a lot of myths. And there's some realities. And the reality is, and I'll say more about it in the summary this afternoon when I finalize everything. The reality is, every single person in this room and every single person that's ever been through this seminar since 1993, and every single person that's watching on YouTube can finance their project, no matter how doofus it might seem. Every single one. And for those of you that haven't been able to do it, I got a nice email thing on Facebook from she looks like an elderly lady. She's got gray hair. And I don't know how old it is, because it's tough to tell in a little picture. But she's been doing this, and this. She says, and I haven't been able to put it all together. And I wrote her, not right away because I was busy preparing for this seminar, but the night before, or the afternoon that you got here, I didn't want her to have to wait another week, so I answered it. And I pointed out some things that she probably hadn't done. And those are the things that are hard for you to do. Remember I told you, this is not like a fucking menu. Well, I have a little escargot, I have a little cheesecake, and I have a little fucking tomato soup. It's not a potpourri where you can pick what you want. Because invariably, we will always pick the things that are easiest for us. We will always pick the things that are within our little chicken shit comfort zone. And by definition, the whole system is to expand your comfort zone. We talked about, briefly, not mentioning any names, but guys that Michael and I know that are Dutch, that thought it was so easy getting money from banks. We didn't even need a gun or a mask. It was like taking candy from a fucking baby. And we've had a few like that, but these guys had the gift of gab. You know, they weren't afraid of flapping their mouth, and they did it. I didn't find it terribly hard either, but I didn't find it that easy. No, I had to wear a mask and have a gun. when I went into the bank, these guys didn't even have a mask or a gun. They just went in there and they bullshitted their way. And there's some people, and it all gets back down to your ability to communicate. And remember, message sent, message received, message acted upon when you want them to give you the money. Not in 9 months or 9 years when they want. Okay. Any questions before we tell YouTube goodbye for a while? Okay, thanks, Megan.